Okay, so I'm welcoming back Dr. Vigliotti. She came to us last year and provided a very popular lecture on anxiety. So she's back to give us another wonderful presentation on anxiety for all of you. And I'll give you a little bit of background about her. She has a practice called SelfWorks located here in New York City, and she is the founder of the practice. Before that, she led a program for traumatized youth at the Child Advocacy Center at Jacobi Medical Center. She earned her doctorate in clinical psychology from Adelphi University, and she also received a postdoc certificate in interpersonal therapy from the White Institute. I think you're in very good hands. I will pass it over to her and let her take over and provide you a wonderful lecture. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Erin. Welcome, everyone. I'm really thrilled to be here. Thanks, Erin, for inviting me back. It's a real honor to be here. As Erin said, I'm the head of a group practice in New York City. And perhaps importantly to today's conversation, I'm also a breast cancer thriver of 15 years. So I think I get a little bit about what maybe some of you have experienced or what you might be experiencing now. If I've done my job well today, I hope everyone leaves a little bit lighter, take a little bit of that stress off of you, and as well as kind of give you some more tools to manage all the ongoing challenges we all face on a daily basis. Let me pull up our presentation for today. Can everyone see and hear me clearly? Okay. As I said, we'll be leaving some time today at the end for some Q&A, but I'll be checking the chat throughout. So if you have anything that comes up, feel free to put it in the chat. I'll certainly make sure we get to it at the end. I love to start these group gatherings with some deep breathing. We can actually reset our whole nervous system in 5 deep breaths. So let's just take a moment here together to kind of turn off any distractions, any interruptions. And if you wish to close your eyes, you can do that as well. And just start to inhale up through your nostrils. Approximately, I'll be counting silently to the count of 5. Hold here for a moment, filling your belly with air, and then just letting it all go. A deep exhale out. And let's take another breath in here together. The count of 5. And letting it all go. Taking another deep inhale in. Holding it up at the top for a moment, and then letting it all go. Taking another deep inhale in through your nostrils. Filling your belly, and then letting it all go. And let's do one more all together. All right. Thank you for joining me in that. We're all here today to talk about anxiety. I think it's important to remember that if we're alert and awake right now in the world, we're feeling anxiety. It is a common natural response to uncertainty and unpredictability. That doesn't mean we don't have tools and skills and strategies to make it more manageable, but it is natural to feel anxious. And it certainly feels natural to be anxious when there's something real and threatening and dangerous or unsafe going on in your life. One thing we do want to think about with anxiety is making sure we're not dialing it up in some way. And one way we dial it up is by making assumptions. So, a very common natural one that I experience, I imagine many of you experienced, is when a new symptom arises. Let's say, you're going about your day and all of a sudden you get a stomach ache. You're like, is it something I ate? Do I feel nervous about something? Oh, I got this big talk coming up. Maybe that's why I have butterflies in my stomach. But it can be easy sometimes to catastrophize in those cases, right? Oh, something's really wrong. And you start going down that dark rabbit hole of what a stomach ache could actually be. Sometimes when we start to feel anxious, I don't know if any of you do this, but we start to control for certainty and not even around necessarily the thing that provoked the anxiety. We can start doing it all these other areas of our life. It gives us a false sense of control when other things feel out of control. But what I want you to do is, instead of trying to kind of look outward and control for these things around you, remind yourself you're resilient. Everyone here today on this call and this webinar is resilient. You've been through some tough stuff. You might still be going through some tough stuff. When we turn inward and we love who we are, we love our strengths, we love our weaknesses, we love everything about us that makes us us, we remind ourselves we have what it takes to face whatever's coming next. We have these innate abilities to cope and manage difficult situations. Erin mentioned that I began as a psychologist in a child advocacy center. Young kids start tapping into their senses before they even know what mental health is, to cope and manage with difficult situations. We find ways to self-soothe through taste, through sound, through sight. We're going to get into that a little bit later. But don't second guess yourself. You all have what it takes to get through this. So I'm going to start out by giving you an exercise you could do for yourself that will make this talk more tailored to you and help you with the unique worries that are going on for you. So if you have a pen and paper handy, or you want to take a moment to go get one, you can also use any kind of like digital notepad. Or if you're super on it, you could just keep this all in your head. But I want you to take a moment to think about some of your top worries. Maybe everything on this slide can cause you worry. Meeting new people, losing something or someone important to you, failure, health. But if you can rank or just think about what are the 1, 2, 3 worries that really cause you distress. And I'll be quiet here for a moment so you can think, what are the things that are coming up for you now? It could be on this slide, or it could be something completely different. And I want you to think about the worry as either something that's happened before that might still require some healing, or perhaps you're casting a prediction about something to come next, or a combination of the two. So look at your list there and write down next to it, either this is something that's happened before, this is something that's ongoing, this is something that hasn't happened yet, but I'm casting predictions about. Now, when you're thinking about these worries, I want you to think about the ways they show up for you. So 20 years ago, I was terrified of public speaking. I mean, you couldn't get someone more shaky. The first time I had a coach, I don't know why, but I had some kind of clicker pen, terrible. And and the coach immediately took it out of my hand because I was just sitting there talking and clicking away. Um, so that's one, it was one of my tells right away that I was anxious, right? But here's some of the common ones that come up. When we think about how anxiety shows up in our system, right? We get shortness of breath or feel breathless. We can get a rapid heartbeat, feel that lump in our throat, our muscles all tensing and cramping up. Sometimes people even feel like the urge to scream or curse or just, ugh. You can get nausea, stomach butterflies. You can have tingly sensations or cold, clammy extremities. People even say like their hairs stand on end. And when these bodily changes happen or emotional changes happen, we can feel an impulse to act. So we've all probably heard of fight, flight, freeze, right? You might want to run away or get out of somewhere. Some people hide, crawl under their covers for the day. You might feel the kind of impulse to rapidly talk or fill the space, crying, averting attention, darting eyes, or then sometimes being more frozen, really kind of at a loss for words or staring off. And then sweating or other bodily changes that are unpleasant, like vomiting or diarrhea. And so this is by no means a comprehensive list of how anxiety shows up, but some of the most common ones and some of the most distressing ones that happen to people. So looking at your list, maybe think about the ways anxiety is showing up for you now. And later on, we're going to understand why this is important, because let's say you have trouble discerning whether something's going to pass or something needs to be paid attention to. So that example of the stomach butterflies, if it was 11 a.m. and I start having the stomach butterflies, I'm like, ooh, what's going on? Do I need to start thinking about food poisoning? I'm getting nauseous. Oh no, wait, my talk's at 12, right? Now I can start to have that rational voice in my head that goes, I'm not going to go to that catastrophic place. I'm going to think about what my anxiety shows up like and start to kind of make connections that make more sense, maybe are more rational responses. One coping strategy that you might all be using for anxiety is avoidance, right? So there's a healthy amount of avoidance that goes into anxiety, and there's an unhealthy amount of avoidance. So I want you to really be honest with yourself right now. You can put in the chat if you're a sharer and you want to disclose and normalize how often we all avoid. But if you want to keep this to yourself, that's cool too. I want you to write down what important thing you're avoiding. Maybe it's calling back that friend. Maybe it's making that doctor's appointment you've been putting off. I'm going to be quiet here for a minute so you can really wrestle with yourself for a minute to think about what important thing you've been avoiding because it makes you stressed. Yeah. Thank you, Tia, for sharing. Yeah, visits with family can be terribly anxiety producing. Oh, home repairs, the worst. I'm going to come back to Tia's too at the end. Sometimes researching things is, or avoiding researching depends on how you research. Sometimes we can do further harm than good. That's a dicey one. Thank you for those who share. Oh, Sheila wrote, uncluttering and organizing my papers. So that's funny. That's the thing I do when I'm avoiding something else. Like I'm avoiding making that call I have to make, and I start organizing my closet. The final papers. Yeah, Janet, thank you. Well, being honest with ourselves and really knowing ourselves is a really important step in managing anxiety. Um, Avoidance works in the short term, right? It's like, oh, I want to do that thing. I'm thinking about doing that thing. I feel my anxiety, my guilt, my all my things sort of raising up in my body. And then I go, no, I don't have to do it now. I go, oh, I can I can feel at ease again, right? So it's a short-term reprieve for something long-term, that all these things that you pointed out are really important to you all. Um, so it's an okay short-term strategy, but we want to make sure we don't rely on it too much. And we don't want to rely on it as a long-term strategy. Because I bet if everybody was looking at these things you've been avoiding, they connect somehow with a value to you, taking care of your family, taking care of your home, taking care of your health, right? So there's a cost, a huge cost that goes with avoiding these things that are important. So it's funny, I'm going to teach you a lot of strategies today. A lot of them are based in mindfulness, MBSR. John Kabat-Zinn is the sort of father of mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR. And it's funny because remember, I said we all have this tool to manage anxiety or manage really painful emotions. And one of the tools is just being, just noticing. I say just as if it's so easy, right? But what I think of with emotions is there's a wave, right? So we start to build, the feeling intensifies and it peaks. We could do nothing, and that wave just will start to ebb on its own. There's a peak. Not to say there might not be another wave coming, but we want to surf them. We can't stop them. Feelings just come and go. There's really nothing we can do to stop them completely. But what happens sometimes is we avoid or we do something else that's not quite as good for us. And instead of the wave kind of doing its thing and ebbing and flowing, the next wave comes bigger. And then it comes bigger until it's like, hey, pay attention, right? Got the next wave coming. So when we just start to ride out the waves, when we surf these waves, we do keep them more manageable. We prevent them from getting bigger. And not all anxiety is unhelpful, right? We want to think about anxiety as being an important signal. The talk of today is, let anxiety be a guide, you do the driving. So when we get that signal, we want to go, what's going on here? What do we want to pay attention to? So sometimes like a low level of anxiety can motivate people, right? Oh, I'm a little anxious about my weight, gained 5 pounds. Oh, now I'm at the gym an hour later, right? It's motivating me. So it can help you meet deadlines, gain mastery in a new skill, help other people stay with a health regimen, a treatment plan. For one of my clients, it helped them avoid an altercation. They changed subway cars. It can even help you find a better relationship if you pay attention to, what, I don't think this relationship is working for me. It's making me anxious. When it starts to become too much, that's when we start to lose focus, we lose clarity, we can become overwhelmed, procrastinate, isolate, not connect with friends or family. Our sleep and other self-care becomes disrupted, and we can start to identify threats where they don't exist. A great example of this for me is when my daughter was 2, I don't know how many of you have been to New York City playgrounds recently, but in the summer, they're just covered in little pieces of water balloon. It is a parent's nightmare because when you have little kids, they just go boop. So, for a good year of her life, whenever I saw her do this, I'd be on top of her. Like, what is that? And sometimes the threat was true. It was something she really shouldn't put in her mouth. Other times it was a little more benign, like a piece of a granola bar that fell on the floor. But there was a real need to act quickly and to discern later whether it was a true threat or not. There's probably areas of your life where you don't want to act like I did and jump too soon. So you decide when kind of acting on impulse or acting, quickly before thought is a good thing. And when you want to kind of take more time and think about, the next action step. So let's take out that list of yours and put 2 columns on the paper: productive, unproductive, or helpful, unhelpful. And think about the ways you're responding to the anxiety, and ways maybe you might have some crossover. So for example, if I take a common example, like going on a road trip. So there might be a concern, right? Is my car going to make the travel? I'm going to go 5 hours to Vermont. So productive worry, productive action could be taking my car for an oil change, rotating the tires, taking for a quick assessment, full tank of gas, all that kind of thing. In the unproductive column might be what if statements. Oh, what if I break down? Or, oh, what if I get tired on the road? That might fall into the productive column of, well, maybe I'll pick a time of day to drive where I'm more alert. Maybe I'll have a buddy in the car. And so once you can kind of turn these statements into productive action, anything left in your unproductive column, we want to work on letting go or noticing it as an anxious thought. It's go, oh, that's my anxiety talking. That's not going to help me right now. And we'll talk more about how to do that. So I'm going to be quiet here for a minute, so you can start this list. And this will be something you take with you and keep adding to as you go along. So I've been giving you some examples of external or bodily events that often make us anxious. Stomach aches, somebody doing something that looks threatening in front of you. You all put great ones in the chat that would make anybody anxious. I want to talk about one internal process that we do that is a recipe for anxiety. And sometimes we do it in survival mode. To get through a treatment, we can sometimes lock a lot of our emotions away. I know for a lot of people, it's like when the treatment ends, all the emotions rise to the surface. Or when the crisis ends, all the emotions rise to the surface. It's a very common phenomenon. But we do it in even like smaller doses throughout our life. You know, I don't know if any of you saw the movie Inside Out, but they try to put sadness, the character sadness, in a circle, and it's Pixar's way of representing suppression. We don't need sadness. Joy's like, no, you stay over here. We don't want your kind around. Sadness doesn't stay in the circle very long, as you might predict. It just doesn't work. It works for that amount of time. But we do try to lock our emotions away. And even messages in our society tell us to lock our emotions away. We have a lot of messages growing up. Girls should be nice. Don't be angry, right? So a lot of emotions also get this kind of like bad or taboo label around them. So I want you to think to yourself or put in the chat, what emotions feel taboo, or what emotions do you get encouraged in your circles to lock away? And as you're thinking about that, I'll give you one other example, because even positive emotions can get locked away. I was working with someone who, as a kid, had a very loving family, and they thought that they were doing a good thing by sharing some of her accomplishments or things that she was doing. For example, like, oh, show everybody your dance routine, when she was like 8. And she had a really difficult time tolerating people's eyes on her and just common, sibling and cousin jealousy. And so in turn, she actually started to lock away some of that joy and pride. It was almost a secondary casualty to not wanting to deal with the jealousy. And so somehow we kind of find a lot of emotions get locked away, or they get numbed. fear, sadness. Yeah. Brene Brown has a lot of like these little animations too about how people implicitly encourage us to lock them away. You might find people in your life, you well-meaning. Someone said to their father last week, I'm really struggling," and the dad said, "Wow, but you look great." And there's like a cheering up aspect to that, or a way to try to, I guess, pick up people's spirits. But when you're really suffering, you really want to connect with someone around that suffering. So it's important to find companions through this, people who don't tell you to lock away your important feelings and emotions. So sometimes when we lock away our feelings, they actually kind of tuck away in our bodies. So I know if my jaw is feeling tense, that I'm starting to really feel the stress of something, right? For you guys, maybe it's your jaw, shoulders, other areas of your back. This is one of my favorite things to do. It's called progressive muscle relaxation. And we're going to do like a head to toe kind of scan and release of the bodily tension we're holding. If you want to close your eyes, if that feels good to you, you can. If you want to look at the picture on the screen, you can. If you want to just avert your gaze and look at a neutral spot on the ground, you can. If closing your eyes might bring up painful images for you, I recommend against it. Kind of just avert your gaze somewhere more neutral. And if you've had any kind of injury or post-surgery where tensing the muscles and releasing them is not indicated for you, then I want you to picture like your stress melting away like butter. Just don't do the tense part. Just kind of let it melt away. So let's sit in our chairs or lay down if you have the capacity to lay down, and just kind of feel the weight in your seat. Feel your feet firmly planted on the ground. And starting at the top of your head and kind of moving down through the face, I want you to tense your muscles, like really clench your jaw and feel the sensations there as you do it. Take a deep inhale here, like we did at the start, and then exhale out. You might even take your hands here and just really gently encourage all the stress to come out of your jaw. Moving to our shoulders, we're going to lift them up, feel the tension we create, the sensations we create at the top of our shoulders, almost that they're touching our ears. And hold here for a breath or two, filling your belly with air, exhaling out, whatever rhythm feels good to you. And then gently just let those shoulders drop to the side and let the stress kind of just melt like butter down your arms. Let's do that kind of with a big squeeze here. Squeeze in, feeling all the tingly sensations in your arms and the sides of your ribs. Give yourself a giant squeeze, a giant hug. And on your next exhale, just release. You can shake out if you like a little bit. And now I want you to bring the upper part of your legs together. Perhaps you imagine a piece of paper between your inner thighs that you're holding between. And take a few breaths here, inhaling up, taking a long exhale out. You'll feel the sensations between the tops of your legs. And on your next exhale, you're going to just gently let your legs fall to the side, letting out any stress you're holding in your legs, letting it just melt off. And then with your feet planted firmly in the ground, I want you to imagine you're like stomping on grapes, making wine, or, you know, digging your feet in the sand. Go ahead and push your feet in and get all the stress out of the balls of your feet, your toes. Wiggle your toes if you like. Just give permission to the lower part of your leg and feet to just relax. Let's take one big inhale in together. One exhale out together. Okay. You might have noticed some areas of your body don't feel as tense as others. That's completely normal. You probably also noticed that your mind wandered. It's lunchtime, you might be thinking about lunch, might be thinking about what you have to do after this talk. We know that in the meditation, the mindfulness world is monkey mind. We just swing to thought to thought. Don't pay too much attention to it. It's absolutely common. That never really goes away. What we practice doing in any of these exercises is just like, oh, I got distracted. Let me just come back and tense my legs, or come back and take a deep breath. And we start to do that more frequently with less judgment, with less criticism, and we build up a lot of self-compassion for ourselves and for just the way our mind works. I love this, coming out of the progressive muscle relaxation, a big hug for ourselves. I think one of the biggest things we can do for anxiety is be proactive about it. So all the tools here I'm giving you today could be helpful skills when you're feeling anxious. They can also be things you kind of adapt into your daily routine or bolster up before something big that's going to happen. There was a great study that people who spent on average like 20 minutes a day doing some kind of mindfulness or meditation exercise felt less anxiety than the people who didn't. But what was interesting is that lasting effect happened even 2 months after their last like formal meditation exercise. So we do these things. We can actually rewire our brain, as Rick tells us. So have a cope ahead strategy for any kind of event. Some of you put visiting family or preparing. You might want to chunk and do it in small things. You might want to lay out expectations ahead of time. But if you go back to that sort of productive, unproductive list, you can turn some of these thoughts that you have in your brain to real productive action. It's really hard to see this person. Maybe I need to kind of lay out an expectation. Maybe I need to send a text in advance of our meeting. That goes in the productive column. And what I mentioned earlier is, these kids I was working with, they sort of tapped into their natural coping abilities very quickly, very easily. Because as we know, kids are very sensory. They're all, touch and taste and smell, and especially young kids. And we forget that, us adults, we have these same sort of abilities and even more sophisticated. And so one of my favorite things to do, both as proactive before something coming up that's important, or particularly even for people who have like acute trauma symptoms, panic, trouble sleeping, when you're in that really hyper aroused, hypervigilant state, this is one of my favorite exercises. It's called Safe Place Visualization. I did not come up with it. Many practitioners do it. You can find mine on Spotify for free, but find anybody whose voice you like, whose rhythm you like, and there's lots of different versions of this out there. And we're going to take a place that feels completely relaxed and at ease for you. And for today, nobody else is allowed there but you. It's just your own space. And again, you can close your eyes or find a neutral space to avert your gaze. And I'm going to take you through a mini version of this. I want you to get kind of a small tasting, a small sample of these activities. And then for the ones that you like, you can follow up after the talk and practice in a more kind of alonged, these exercises could be 5, 10, 20, 30 minutes. So once you have your place in mind, again, kind of just feel more grounded in your chair. You might close your eyes and start to really elongate that breath, filling in your belly, exhaling out, and tap into your imaginary sense of sight. What do you see in your place that you like? What colors are soothing? What shapes are soothing? I just explore. And if we think about our sense of sound, our sense of hearing, I'll be quiet here for a moment so you can call to mind some of the unique sounds of your place. And using our sense of touch, our tactile sensory system, imagine being in your space. Maybe you feel some comfy clothes around you. You're wearing your favorite, I don't know, pajamas or sweatsuit. Or maybe if you're at the beach, you're going to feel the sand in your toes. Or if it's a beautiful sunny day, you can imagine feeling that warmth of the sun on your face and filling your entire body. And let's get really playful and creative at the end here with our sense of smell and taste. You can invite anything into the space you want, your favorite ice cream, your favorite hot drink, and just really breathe in the aroma. Maybe you just walked into a bakery. Let it really kind of take a, on your next inhale, let it really infuse your whole body. Really breathe it in, taste it on your tongue, let it fill your mouth, and enjoy one of your favorite things right now. All right, let's take one more inhale in together and exhale out together. All right, I hope that was great for people. Feel free to put in the chat where you went. I go to the beach. It's my happy space. And I have an ice cream cone, vanilla. Mindfulness is the act of being in the present moment. And what anxiety is not is being present. Anxiety is time traveling. We are somewhere else. Sometimes we've returned to a past event. We're making forecasts about a future. Sometimes we're just in the future. So when we have a mindfulness practice, we practice the antidote for anxiety, right? Just being present in our present moment. Right now, we're all together in this webinar. It's very manageable. All we have to do is just be here right now. We don't have to deal with what's next yet. So when we have a mindfulness practice, like any of the ones I started to show you, what you do is you catch yourself drifting off and you just go up. I just thought about my lunch. I'm going to come back and eat my ice cream cone. Right. And how this translates to real life is you're sitting at work and you're meeting and you think about something distressing to you. This isn't avoidance. This is, kind of being in the present moment. You're like, nope, now's not the time. I notice I'm drifting off, but I'm going to come back I have to focus on this meeting right now. And in doing that, we start to get clarity, right? Because we're separating out judgments, self-criticisms from what's right there in front of us, our facts and our reasonable responses. When we notice our unhelpful thoughts, which we all have, then you have that choice point. I'm not going to react to this. I know it's my anxiety talking. The most important thing I want you to leave here with today is compassion. Please treat yourself the way you treat others. Right? Sometimes what drives up anxiety, what drives up all of our negative affect is we are so cruel to ourselves. So we can start to notice, oh, I just noticed, I just criticized myself right there. I said, oh, you tongue tied there. I'm going to be kind to myself, right? Everybody tongue ties sometimes. So we're thinking about ways to manage what's in front of us and not make it worse. And so what I want you to do today is jot down, I want you to commit to doing this, something you do daily that you can make your mindfulness practice. It doesn't have to be these structured meditations. It could be your morning coffee. If it's your morning coffee, you spend 1 to 3 minutes just like watching the pour, smelling the aroma, maybe holding the warm glass, then really tasting it, right? You're engaging in the senses. And you're going to think about, oh, I got that morning meeting. I don't want to, I'm just going to come back to my coffee. And these are the muscles we're going to build to deal with the really, really challenging things that we have on our plates. I want to leave you all with an activity that works for a lot of people, but again, it's optional. All these, think of this as like your toolkit. And maybe one day you pull out safe place, one day you pull out progressive muscle relaxation, but every day you're going to do your coffee, or brushing your teeth is another one. It's a twofer. Most of you do it twice a day. A mantra is another form of anchor when things start to swirl and feel a little chaotic. It's like our breath, right? Let me just take 5 deep breaths. Let me just come back to my mantra. So a mantra is something, maybe a few words, a sentence that anchors you right here today. It will have meaning for you. It will probably tap into some core belief or belief system. You might notice it has an impact on others or yourself. And oftentimes it frees you up so you can kind of stay focused on goals and strivings and aspirations. A very popular one I hear a lot is "This too shall pass." A client of mine who realized that she was an overachiever, people pleaser, was just overextending herself in so many ways, came to me one day after many months and said, I got my mantra. It's do less things better. I was like, I'm going to share that. That's a good one. And mantras are everywhere. Ivy has one. It's great. I want power. I want sugar. I want special treats. That's her mantra. She's 6. Sounds pretty good. I want special treats, Ivy. And there's a lot in our popular culture. So let's play a little game. Wake everybody up before we move into Q&A and our mantra development. What popular commercial company brand, what do you think their mantra, what company's mantra is authentic athletic performance? Any guesses out there? Ding, ding, ding. Yes, Heather. Nike. Thanks for playing along. All right, what popular character is do or do not? There is no try. Do or do not. There is no try. No guessing, huh? Yes, Heather is sharp today. Thank you, Heather. All right, uh, what popular Disney character many of us grew up with? Never grow up. Tia, yes, Peter Pan. So see, everybody's got their motto. They got their thing they're doing. Um, so in the service of time today, I'm going to do a very quick prompt to kind of get your juices flowing around your mantra. But you're going to take this with you. This might take you a couple of days, couple of weeks, months, and it might evolve with you. What you need today is not maybe what you need next week or next month or next year. Uh, but I'm going to just throw some things out there. And this is like a free association. You're not allowed to edit or draft yourself. You just jot down the first thing that comes to mind. And then you're going to take this with you and I'll help you form your mantra as you go on. So, what values or value is top of your list right now? What do you wish you had more of? What's something you're really proud of? What wish do you have for yourself? What talent do you have or talents? What would you at your healthiest look like? What's a goal that you've shelved that you are considering taking off the shelf? We've got a lot of creatives in this group. All right. I'm going to pause there. But I think you all have a lot of juices flowing. Everybody is sharp today. Mantras are grounding, as I explained, and I think they can focus us when we can feel a little unsteady. And in the research, there's a number of ways that they've studied mantras and the things that they improve, and these are just some of them. So if you're thinking about developing one or you want to play around with them, the most important thing is that it comes from you. No one can give you your mantra. And when people find them, they're like, this is it. They kind of know it. So play with it and see where it takes you. I'm going to pause here. I'm going to leave my contact information up on the screen for a minute. Feel free to jot anything down. I have lots of resources I can share with you if anybody's interested in building a mindfulness practice, expanding their current mindfulness practice. I can send you my short list of helpful resources to stay with. And feel free to email me here at amyvigliotti@selfworksgroup.com if we don't get to all the questions today. But let's open it up and see what came up for people, what questions got stirred up, what stood out to people.